Hi, this is Dr. Dan with Farm-Backed Microgreens. Today we're going to be showing you how we plant both pea shoots and sunflower. So I'm going to get this all set up for you guys and we'll get started planting. I like to use this Pro Mix. It comes in a 2 cubic foot container, and it's got sphagnum peat moss in it. It's got some vermiculite, and it's got this thing called Myoactive, which definitely helps to keep down any kind of bacterial growth that might be contained. As we know, sphagnum peat moss typically is pretty much sterile, and this does not contain any fertilizer. With the sphagnum peat moss, what I like to do is sift it a little bit. I run it through this screen. It just allows me to get a finer mix. It breaks up any kind of clumps that might be involved with this particular soil mix. It does come in this 2 cubic foot bag, so it is pretty well compressed, which makes it nice for storing large containers of bags. And then what I'm left with is just sometimes some wood fibers, and then those are sifted out. So we get a nice fine mix after that, and that's basically what my mix looks like. Very fluffy and easy to work with. The seeds tend to do really well with that type of soil. So next what I'll do is I'll fill up these 2 trays. You can visually see one of these trays right now. And so typically I use this, I guess it's a 16-ounce container or 8-ounce container of, used to be cottage cheese, but it makes for a nice scoop. So we typically will do 3 scoops of those. And I'm just going to fill up this other tray, which may not be in the field of the camera. So that's our first step with these trays. The next step is we just take and kind of level out this soil. We want to make sure that it fills in nicely. You're going to end up with about approximately 1 inch of soil that will be seen. Then what I like to do is just level out the surface. So this is cut to the 10-20 tray size, and it just makes for a nice flat surface. So we'll do the same thing for this other tray. And we just level it out. Shake it a little bit so it's nice and even, and then we'll flatten it out with this leveler. So then what we need to do is measure out our seed. So depending on the seed size will depend on how much seed we actually use. So for sunflower, what I found is at about 4.5 is about 4.5 ounces, and the peas are approximately 7.5 ounces. So this is dwarf snow pea, and this comes from a company called True Leaf, which I order a fair amount of seed from them. Most of their seeds are organic and non-GMO, and as you may know already, the only really GMO seeds that are out there are corn. So then we'll take our seed, which is the dwarf snow pea, and we'll just shake it onto here and try to even it out as much as possible. If you get too many in one area, the plants will become moisture ridden, and you may have some dying off, or what we call dampening off, where we get a lot of moisture in one spot, and then there's always that possibility for mold. And then what I like to do after that is just take this leveler and just push the seeds into the ground so that we get good contact with the seeds. So those are our snow peas. And then with our sunflower, because it is a different size seed, we use approximately 4.5 ounces. Oops. And we don't want to be putting more pea in there, do we? So here is our sunflower. So I typically measure everything out. I like to be fairly exact when I'm measuring these trays. One thing that I've noticed is that when I do measure them out, I kind of know the consistency of what my tray is going to look like, and also from that we don't have any extra waste. If you tend to overseed, you will have areas that don't go very well, and if you underseed, you won't have as well of a yield. So same with the sunflower, we just evenly will shake it out, and so that way we get a good coverage. Now the sunflower tend to cover a little bit thicker here. And one thing about sunflower, and when I show you some of the plants that are growing right now, they do have this seed on them. Now some people will soak the seeds prior to planting them. I find it an extra step, and I really haven't found any improvement in yield, nor have I noticed that the seed hulls come off any easier. That's one pain thing about sunflower, is they tend to be very unforgiving in letting their seed hulls disappear. So we have to pick them off or shake them off, and there are methods that we can do that with. And then once again, what we'll do is we'll take our compressor and just press it down, and therefore we've got good coverage of the seed in contact with the ground. All right, so the next step we need to do is get these trays with some water in them so that the seeds can germinate well. With sunflower and with snow pea, we like to use a fair amount of water because they do tend to soak up the water. So put it on this little spray mode here, and then we'll just go back and forth and get this tray nice and moist. You don't want the seeds to be floating by any means, but you certainly want the soil to be fairly wet. And so it's kind of I guess a feel thing, but usually what I do is I go a couple times up and down the tray till I get a fair amount of water on them. Now what I like to do is, in between each of the trays, is I'll put a layer of paper towel. What I find that does is it gives a little bit of extra moisture to the tops of the seeds, and they tend to germinate a little bit better. So I'll add just a little bit of water on that, and that'll give us some moisture on that paper towel. And then from there, I just stack the next tray on top. So we'll put the peas on top. For finer seeds, let's say it's broccoli or arugula, or even sometimes the radish, we tend to put those more towards the top of the tray, because obviously these trays can get pretty heavy when you stack them, and so you'll have a lot of weight on those more tender seeds as compared to the larger ones like the snow pea and also the sunflower. Some trays we don't stack. Beets is one, amaranth is another. They tend to do better with just a cover over the top rather than stacking them individually. The weight on those particular seeds, they just don't germinate well. So we put on the extra piece of paper towel, and then the last step is to put on one more tray. So we put on another 10-20 tray, and then I have this little weight in here, so you can use a magazine or a book just so you have some extra weight. That gives a little bit of pressure on top of those seeds, and then they tend to germinate really well from there. So then what I do is I stack the trays on top of my grow racks. So that's the stack that we just put together with the sunflower and snow pea. Here's a couple other stacks that we have. There's some popcorn in there. There's the amaranth. So the amaranth, basically what I did is I just put the cover on top of that, and that gives, like I said, we don't want to have a lot of weight on top of that. And here's a picture of the sunflower on the right and the snow pea on the left. These were just uncovered today, and so it was about 4 to 5 days that they were completely covered and weighted, and then the trays start to lift up, so it gives you an indication that it's time to uncover them. So we take them off, take off the paper towel, and at this point in time we want to give them just a little bit of water. But if you've watered the seeds and the soil well when you first plant and cover them, you probably won't need to water them until the next day. And here is sunflower that is just about ready to be harvested. As you can see, some of these seed hulls are still stuck on here. We can take them off, and oftentimes that's what we have to do individually, is just remove the seed hulls by hand. Very tedious thing. So some lots tend to be a little bit better, so when you get to the top of the growth, the seeds start to come off. Some lots, these seeds just want to stick on for whatever reason. But we usually don't want to go past this stage, so we've got 2 leaves on here, and that's about it for our growth for the sunflower. So just a quick tour of some of the things that are growing in here. We've got sunflower in different stages here. These still have a lot of seeds on. Here is buckwheat, so buckwheat, and that's ready to be harvested and will be used in this weekend's market. Down here we've got some of our blends. So we've got a spicy blend and also a basic blend. And so these contain broccoli, kohlrabi, arugula, kale, red mustard for the spicy, and then red cabbage. So this is just one grow rack that we have of many. And then down here at the bottom, this is what radish looks like. So that radish is approximately 5 days into growth. Here is radish that's going to be harvested today. We need that for a chef. So this has grown. Usually I don't let the radish grow this long, but sometimes some of the chefs like it a little bit longer. And then this is just a different variety. This is a French radish, so this one does not turn red. Here's what my amaranth looks like. This one's a little bit more difficult variety to grow. It's very temperamental in regards to temperature and moisture. So sometimes you get areas where you might have some dampening off, like we do here, where we've lost some of that particular crop. The other one that we grow is beets. So these are beets down here, and these are getting pretty close to being harvested as well. So that's kind of a tour of my facility here. You can see the grow racks behind me and the lights that we use. These are just basically simple full spectrum lights that we utilize for growing. They are on 24/7, and then I also have fans to just allow for a little extra airflow so we don't get too much moisture forming on top of the leaves. I also have a dehumidifier in here as well to keep the humidity down. We don't want that to get too high.